Before we get started in the show and talking about that teaching component of the Big Five, clinical, teaching, research, service, and leadership, I just wanted to remind you I do help students one-on-one with their letters of intent. You go to residency.teachable.com/P/extreme LOI. And there are 13 free modules there that can help you if you want to try to do it on your own. But really what I provide is that peace of mind that you send it to me, I send it back to you, you look at what you started with and you look at where it's at and you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, this is someone that really knows what he's doing with this very niche thing. And I can't tell you how important that peace of mind is and that clarity is as to what you want. Because right now you're going into the last couple preceptors you can get recommendations from. And they're asking you, okay, well, is there anything else you want to work on? And you say, no, I don't really think so. When if you had done your letters of intent, if you had identified your top 2 programs, if you had taken the time to reflect and do those couple of paragraphs, takes a couple hours, then you would be clear. It's like, you know what? There is something I really need. I really need an opportunity to mentor or to teach because I'm going to be applying to some programs with teaching certificates and I don't have any significant teaching experience. Is there anything that I can do? And then you kind of have that conversation. So again, residency.teachable.com/P/extreme LOI. I'm happy to help you. And again, you've got those 13 free preview sections that you can look at that can help you with your recommendations, letter of intent, your even job application or your job cover letter. And, I just want to be there to help you. Sure. Okay, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I have George Chi, who is a P4 at the University of Iowa College of Pharmacy. And we just had an academic APPE together for the last 5 weeks. But obviously under coronavirus, things are a little bit different. And what I wanted to do was kind of learn about his story, how he got to Iowa, and what he's done so far, and maybe some advice that he can give to other P4s that are going through the same thing. And the P4 year is so weird, at least for me. I was kind of homeless and moving all over the place many times, and even just as simple as getting your mail was just a little bit weird. But I wanted to kind of get his thoughts. So George, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your entry into pharmacy and what got you going. Me personally, I was going that chemistry degree route, and I really didn't understand what chemists did. And as a part of the pre-med club, I volunteered in a pharmacy, and I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. And then ended up applying to pharmacy school before I ever even thought of a medical school application. But what brought you to pharmacy school in the first place?
Yeah, I guess mine actually starts back in high school. It's kind of funny because originally I actually had wanted to be an engineer, but my father, who was an engineer, told me that he'd rather me not. So he's not a super big fan of it, I guess. He asked me to maybe keep my options open rather than completely settle in on that. So one day in high school, I was in AP chemistry, and our teacher actually had a pharmacist come in. I can't remember where she was from, but she actually was telling us all about how pharmacists are more than for lack of a better word, pill pushers. Because
Sure.
Up until that point, this was junior year of high school. I had just assumed all pharmacists really did was just count pills, sit in a dark room all day and just hand them out. But as she was telling me about her job, they do way more than just that. And she was telling me about how there's a lot more patient interaction now. They're more than just glorified librarians. They have a lot of technicians that help out with counting. So they do a lot more with drug interactions and community outreach, which is probably why she was there. I really do enjoy the whole community outreach of pharmacy these days. So that really inspired me to follow the route of pharmacy. So that's kind of how I got into pharmacy. I had gotten a presentation about quote unquote cool it was.
Okay. No, I understand. So tell me a little bit about where so we've got pre-pharmacy, and your dad really did you a great service in that he didn't wait till you finished Calculus 3 and Diffie Q and thermodynamics to go, well, what might be a good choice or a good alternative. I took calculus 1 3 times, calculus 2 2 times, and I was on my way to chemical engineering, I thought, but that did not work out that way. But as we know, after pre-pharmacy, which is similar across most colleges, what did you start doing that really kind of narrowed your path maybe more towards community?
So what happened also after my first year of college, roommate was actually a chemical engineer, and I saw the work that he had to go through. We had some similar classes, but he obviously had more engineering-based ones, and I'm kind of glad I didn't pick that now. But no offense. One of my, I guess, family friends, her husband is a pharmacist for Cleanman's Pharmacy, which I think recently just sold out to Hy-Vee, but she works as a bookkeeper for Hy-Vee, and she found they had an opening for a pharmacy clerk. So I applied to be a pharmacy clerk at Hy-Vee. And then for a couple months after that, I then applied to be a technician after taking the technician board of certification. And I realized I really did like it there. And I enjoyed doing pharmacy because I did want to get an experience of pharmacy. The presentation was nice and all, but I did want to see for myself if it was what it was cracked up to be. And I did really enjoy it. So that led me to apply to pharmacy school. So that was kind of during the summer after my freshman year. So in the fall of my sophomore year, I had applied to, I was already in the pre-pharmacy program, but then I had made the official decision to apply to pharmacy school.
How did you finish in 2 years? There was zero chance I would finish in 2 years. And I think that it is, I don't want to say relatively easy, but the course is set for somebody that's, at a school that has the 2-year pre-pharmacy curriculum. They're with other people that are pre-pharmacy and all of that. But I think it's so impressive to be able to go right to Chem 1, Chem 2, Organic 1, Organic 2, calculus, high school physics, all those things. How did you get through those 2 years in 2 years?
For me, my AP classes did kind of help with that. I took calculus in high school, so I was prepped for that. But the University of Iowa does really help out with, they have an established pre-pharmacy program that helps you get through it. I can't say it was easy by any means because I remember specifically in biochemistry, they were telling me how you should have learned this organic chem or this should be reviewed from organic chem, but I was just thinking I'm in organic chem right now. And it wasn't until like a month down, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense now.
Okay.
It was kind of rough for me. Since you were taking a lot of the courses concurrently, so I just know if I didn't have like calculus in my background, it would have been significantly more rough, but I somehow pulled through. And university definitely did help. Talking to the pharmacy board of admissions, they also help you out with what classes you need to take and like where you can find resources to help out with pharmacy.
Yeah, you're a braver man than I. And I know Iowa requires biochemistry, but the day I got my acceptance letter is the day that I dropped my biochem class because it wasn't required. So I got through the amino acids, got my letter, and I was like, all right, well, they say I'm going to have to take it again, so I'll just kind of still go to the classes. And I did. I kept going to the classes, but it was just, for whatever reason, I ended up in physics, calculus 2, organic 2, and like you said, biochem at the same time. And I was just like, oh, thank goodness I can drop this one. I was just trying to get ahead, and maybe my eyes were bigger than my stomach in that case. So you got into pharmacy school, and I think that, certainly in that first year, things are somewhat similar, but then everybody kind of starts getting their own path. Tell us a little bit about your path as you've gone through pharmacy school.
Yeah, so when I first started pharmacy school, I initially had thought I would only ever do retail because that's all I've ever known. But as I've gone through pharmacy school, I've taken different electives. There was substance abuse, which detailed a lot more on the hospital sides of things. Dr. Reist, he kind of led the class along with not Dean Kelly anymore, but they had described how they would often have sessions in the hospital to help people get off their substance abuse. And it really gave me a new perspective on patients, I would say, because not to sound super cynical, but in the retail world, a lot of times you're just someone comes in to buy Sudafed and you're just immediately judging them, I guess.
I get you. No, I know, I would work the overnight shift, 11:30 at night. 4 people's grandmothers all have congestion at the same time.
driving up in the same car that came from the Walmart across the street. Yeah, I get it. And, somebody comes in for syringes for their grandmother and cop comes up to me 2 hours later. It's like, did you sell these? I was like, yeah. It's like, well, this guy had them in the parking lot. I'm like, oh, come on. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And it sounds like you really, really learned empathy. Maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, the classes in pharmacy school, as I was going through, really taught me about more empathy for these customers or patients in this case. Because, of course, like as you were saying in the retail world, a lot of times there's not enough interaction with patients. You just sometimes want to just go through the motions. But going through pharmacy school, I've learned that rather than people are actively trying to abuse the system, some of them genuinely have problems. And that made me want to help them compared to just writing them up or considering them a problem. So rather than the person is the problem, it's a person with a problem, if that makes any sense.
No, that's really well put. And I think that we're so focused on the school and making sure we pass the classes and those types of things. And you really don't get any grade for what you're thinking during the interaction or how you're working with the patient, certainly with patient counseling and things like that. But it tends to be on the technical side. And what I'm hearing from you is that there's a completely different side, and the way that side is taught can't really be taught maybe in the classroom. It really has to be experienced, or you have to interact with it maybe in a different way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's
okay. So you've now kind of established what you're interested in, things of kind of moving along, and you blinked and all of a sudden now you're a P4 and you graduate in May. Tell me a little bit about your APPEs so far.
Yeah, so this is my technically fifth one, but my first one was my buy. So during the buy, I had saved up money because I pretty much just worked the entire 5 weeks to save up money. And kind of like you had said, my rotations are all over the place. I don't think I've really stayed in the same place for 5 weeks at a time. So mailing is hard. I'm currently staying with my parents because I'm not going to be in Iowa City or in one place for very long. So I figured renting an apartment for a whole year was pointless.
No, I definitely understand that.
My first rotation, real rotation, not the buy, was at Dividos in Iowa City, which is an adherence mail order packaging facility. So what they do is adherence packaging for people. So they do daily dosages of medication. So they do like custom unit dose packages for people that tell them what time to take it and which ones they need to take. So they're all in one packet. They just have to take that packet at the time of day, which I thought was a neat idea. But it wasn't anything like I was used to because it was all online. Because I'm in community pharmacy, I'm so used to getting out and face-to-face talking to people, and I do a lot with facial expressions. So when we moved to pretty much all online, in this case as well,
yeah.
It was kind of harder for me to talk and kind of empathize with people because I'm not seeing the person. They're just kind of a voice on a screen. But the rotation did help me talk to them a lot because I learned a lot more about getting my expressions across verbally rather than, it's kind of hard to put, but it really helped me empathize like over the phone because a lot of the times I'm talking to a disembodied voice. There's not a real person in front of me. It can get really easy. I can fall into the habit of just assuming this is another caller. I'm working at a call center, but towards the end of the rotation, with more people that I ended up counseling and more people I talked to about getting refills on their prescriptions, it really helped me get better with online communication. So over the phone.
No, and I agree with you. And it's extremely tough. I have a completely different relationship in my two classes. I've got the one class where I've actually seen the people in person. I have class with them for 4 hours for lab every other week on a Thursday. And then there's another one that's completely online. And it's the exact same class, but I feel like I have a different connection. And it's not necessarily better or worse. It's just, okay, I can picture that person. I've spoken to that person. I know what some of the challenges they have, maybe a little bit more than someone who I don't have in that face-to-face interaction. But what are some things, because it seems that many people are talking about the future of pharmacy. Some of that will be telepharmacy. What's your maybe one big tip in terms of being able to humanize, if we could use that word, humanize the person on the other line? Because it sounds like over the rotation time, that humanization happened more and more. And how do you humanize someone? Because right now I'm looking at your first and last name on a Zoom call, and you're looking at a picture of me with my kids in a soccer, uniform or whatever. How do you humanize that person?
I guess for me, it took a lot of just going out and doing it. I usually kind of picture their face, or this is sound weird, but it's helpful for you when I'm looking at you because I know what you look like, and I probably should get a profile picture or something. But just seeing a picture of someone that really helps me humanize them. Like often when I was on the call with someone, I would not look off in the distance and imagine a person talking to me rather than just staring straight at a computer screen. So again, with your profile picture, I know what you look like, kind of. I don't know how updated it is, but
Okay.
it does help me that way. And just remembering that there is another person on the other side of the line, kind of like I'm on one side of the line. And it also helps me kind of put it in perspective too, because I know that I'm talking to a disembodied voice, but as I'm sure you know, not every customer is super nice all the time, and not every customer you'll get will be extremely courteous. So sometimes when they do get on the snippy side, I have to remember that they probably feel the disconnect as much as we do with they're just talking to another disembodied voice on the line, not necessarily a person. And that kind of helps me put things in check, I guess. Just remember that they're another person and they might not necessarily be used to talking on the phone either.
I think what you've kind of nailed is that when we're on these platforms, it probably is good that they see a picture of us then, that they can also say, okay, I'm not just GQ in purple, which is what you end up coming up as in the Zoom, and that you do have a picture of the person. And when you see, for whatever reason, you see the lab coat and you see all of that, and I should probably get a picture of me in front of the whiteboard looking all professory, so that I can have that kind of thing as well. But I think it really does make a difference when they're talking to you to see a face and those types of things. And I feel like we could probably reach out to, the psych department at Iowa and like, so is there a difference when you're online and you're looking at a person's face versus looking at a person's name and letters? And I have to think that they, in terms of the things that you're trying to do when you move forward towards MTM and those types of things, I almost feel like it's almost necessary then to have that picture of yourself up there so that they know who you are. And because I've heard this all the time, especially, and then also with financial planners, where we know everything about their medications. And we forget how kind of intrusive that is to know, okay, well, I know you're on this, and this. At least we can show them a picture of the person that knows this, and this about them. So I kind of went on a tangent there, but I think that's a great tip that if you haven't set up your picture to make it there so that, you do have that human component. Well, let's talk a little bit about your kind of, what was the next one you went to? Because that was number 2, and then you had the off block number 1, and I'm number 5. So what happened with 3 and 4?
So my third one was, or I guess my second one after that. Okay, so this would be my fourth one, second. So yeah, so this is actually my fourth one. Oops, got that out of timeline. But first buy, second divvy dose. And my third one was at a community pharmacy. So an independent one. I had pretty much only worked for retail chains. So I did want to see what an independent pharmacy would be like. And my experience there was pretty different as I guess I was expecting, because one of the main things that was different was me and my preceptor. We went to group homes, not necessarily inside because of the uncertain times right now. So we weren't allowed inside, but we'd go there and they had medication charts. And so we do kind of a annual review of each of the group home medication charts and kind of just look at their drugs, determine or see if there was anything that needs to be changed, anything that they've been on too long. And a lot of them, since they're in group homes, they were on the anti-psych drugs. So I know there's a requirement where you have to either get documentation or of why they didn't change it, or reduce the dosage of an anti-psych drug by, I think, 25% each year, or like I said, get documentation why you're unable to do so. So that was a neat part of independent pharmacies where I don't think I've ever gone out to like a group home. I've always just been in the pharmacy for 8 hours and
Okay.
outside of doing clinics, like flu shot clinics.
No, it's
But
definitely a totally different experience when you get to go out there. And I got to be part of larger, company immunizations and things like that. And that was always kind of neat to meet people where they are, and even going into schools and having like an older brother hold a younger sister in a smaller town while they're getting their flu shot. So just that real interaction was phenomenal for sure. Anything else you can tell us about that rotation?
it was kind of an interesting experience too, because this was when the derecho had swept across Iowa.
Oh yeah, sure.
So we were out of power for like a week and a half.
Whoa.
So yeah, they had no power whatsoever. So it was kind of strange just being there when it happened because we were all huddled in the corner when it was going on. We saw like a gas tank fly by and then a semi like fall almost near us. But it was interesting to see how the pharmacy, like an independent pharmacy, had functioned while an emergency happened because they had no access to computers really. So I guess it was kind of an interesting look in the pharmacy before because most my preceptor was telling me that they had to do things the old-fashioned way before computers were there. So they wrote down prescriptions, they wrote down people's numbers, they wrote down the drugs that were sold, and I just thought that was neat.
Yeah, I worked on a typewriter when I was doing that pre-med thing. So, and then you have to make sure the sticker is perfectly even, or
Yeah,
the tape that goes over it. So
yeah.
I was the end of that, and I remember monochrome monitors when it
Oh,
was
really?
green or amber. So, so yeah, but no, tell me a little bit more about this emergency management because I think that I've heard pharmacists in those kinds of roles.
I want to say our governor declared a state of emergency. So one of the things with that was people who had mail ordered prescriptions or needed those to be shipped in, we could fill those for an emergency 3 days, I want to say. And it was so strange just having people that I guess we had never seen before come up and show us their prescription. We went ahead and filled it, got the payment, and we did have to call in for a prescription or at least let their mail order know that we had filled at least a couple days of it. But of course, a lot of these people didn't have cash and we couldn't exactly run it through their insurance either. So that was a whole nother.
Independent pharmacy seems to be all about troubleshooting. like,
Yeah.
like you are a problem solver if you're working in an independent pharmacy because whether it's the problems in the pharmacy or someone else's that are coming to you, there's always a challenge. I feel like that you're solving.
Yeah, it was interesting because again, there's no light too, and so we were also just kind of filling prescriptions in the dark. So in the parking lot, we had a pharmacist just kind of sit out there so they could at least look at the tablets and look at the label to make sure that it was the right drug, whereas the rest of us were kind of in the back room using lanterns and flashlights digging for each of these drugs. It was it was a wild experience, honestly.
That's great. That's a great way to end that one. Okay. All right. Well, we had our academic experience where we were, kind of talking virtually with our students, and
Yeah.
your communication and your empathy certainly showed through in that you were able to speak to very comfortably in front of groups that you didn't know. But where are you headed now? So maybe about some of the APPEs or career moves that you're thinking about as you kind of work through blocks 5 through, is it 9? 5 through 9?
Yes. 5 through 9 or 5 through 8. I should probably know, but
It's one day at a time, really.
yeah. Starting off with a bye kind of threw my whole schedule off, honestly.
Yeah.
Not that I'm complaining, I guess. At least I got a bye. I know some people wanted to fill their bye with another rotation, which I'm impressed by that they have.
Sure.
Yeah, I think to do that. But I'm headed down to Red Oak, Iowa. It's not a very large town, but it's a hospital rotation, and there's a critical access hospital there. It's 25 beds, so not like the University of Iowa or the UIHC, but it's more critical access. And I actually wanted to go here because previously I've done a mini rotation. I was in the transplant unit at the UIHC for my P3 year,
Okay.
It was only 20 hours, and so I kind of saw what a larger hospital would look like. And farther down the line, I'm also going back to the UAHC, the hospital in a different unit for something. But I had also wanted to go to a smaller hospital again because during my P2 year, I had gone to another critical access hospital, so Clerk in Iowa. And the people listening to this podcast would know, but earlier in the day when you had said that you enjoyed doing compare and contrast ones, for example, the NSAT, I kind of like doing that too. So I had been to one critical access hospital, so I really wanted to go to another one, just kind of compare how those are like. Same with this academic one. I'm going down to another one, the Western Iowa Tech Community College, because again, I wanted to just kind of see what it's like.
Yeah, I'm friends with it. It's funny. We'll probably all know each other. When you go across like that, we probably know each other. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And again, with the UHC, I was in the transplant unit, and now I'll be in, I think, orthopedics. I can double check, but
okay, cool.
All right. So I wanted to kind of see just different units or different hospitals. So this critical access versus another one, and then you at DMAC, and then versus I don't know who they are yet, but
Western Iowa Tech,
yeah, Western Iowa Tech Community College. So
that's cool.
I just really like compare contrasting places.
No, that's awesome, and it just I never thought to do that. Like I think many people are going into, okay, I checked off my critical care box, I checked off my internal medicine box, never thinking, well, why don't I do one at a large academic center and then one at a critical care or a critical access hospital and maybe contrast that way. But I think that's a really neat way to approach discovery as you're kind of trying to figure out what is it you want to do when you graduate. So again, we've kind of covered most things. Is there anything advice you would give to the P3s, 2s, 1s before you? Because they're looking forward and saying, all right, will coronavirus be over? Was it really that bad? Was it really that good? It sounds like no matter what, you get through the experience and kind of learn quite a bit from it, filling prescriptions in the dark, whatever it is. But anything you would want to tell those guys?
I think my most important thing to go into rotation year or just pharmacy school in general is to always just keep an open mind, which sounds really generic. But going into pharmacy school, I'd only want to do retail because that's what I've been used to. But as I've gone through pharmacy school, I've never ruled anything else out. So it's really helped me open my mind and keep my horizons open because I've learned a lot more by not just doing retail only classes, but like I said earlier, going to substance abuse. And for my electives, I picked academic because I'd never considered this to be an idea. And this academic rotation has been something I really enjoyed doing so far. So I would say just keep an open mind. You might like something more than you thought,
awesome.
Or you might be.
Well, George, thanks so much for being on the Pharmacy Residency podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate you listening to the show, and it really does help if you do subscribe, whether it's on iTunes or to my YouTube channel. I do have a significant number of followers, but I do try to answer emails, so tonythepharmacist@gmail.com if you do have just a quick hit question or something like that. But again, I do wish you the best, and the more you become a student of the residency application process, the better you're going to do. So best of luck, and we'll see you in the next episode.